everybody. Welcome to the newest episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. Today's guest is an incredibly talented singer, songwriter, producer, and multi-instrumentalist based in New York City. I heard his newest song, ATL4, on Spotify's Fresh Finds Indie playlist, and I can't stop listening to it. I'm so pumped to talk to him, but before we get the episode started, please make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And you can follow me on @onthatnote_podcast on Instagram to get all the new updates about episodes coming out. And on that note, please welcome Miley. I'm sitting here with Miley, an NYC indie artist. Thank you for joining me for an episode of On That Note. I first heard your newest single, ATL4, on Spotify's Fresh Finds Indie playlist. I recommend everyone go check it out. It's a great playlist with a lot of awesome artists such as yourself. And when I first heard it, it was immediately catchy, just such a great dance tune, and I had to go listen to your other stuff, and they're all great songs. But I want to start this interview by asking you about your writing and recording process for this newest song. Was it anything different compared to your previous releases? Is there anything that sticks out to you about this writing and recording process?
First off, thanks for having me. This song was different in like the way that I approached the songwriting and production aspect, um, in the sense that like I tried to approach it from more of a conceptual space. Like it's, all the most recent songs I've released are in the same kind of like vein, but ATL4 was like the first time I kind of like narrowed that artistic intention down. Um, I used to make music because I produce all my music. So I used to make it more in the sense of like a musician, where I'm thinking like chord progressions, A section, B section, like intro, outro type things in like a really like clinical way. Um, and I approached ATL4 specifically with like words in mind. Like I wanted to be able to explain the song using just like regular people words, like not like music tonality and shit, and like you know going from like major to minor modulations and stuff like that. I really tried to avoid that, and I really just wanted to make each instrument um, make this idea form. And so I approached this song in terms of like light. I started the song with like that chord progression in the beginning, the kind of like warm pad sound, and once I had that down, I was like, okay, I know exactly where the song is going. Um, it takes place at night. Just this is purely off those pads. I was like, all right, this is taking place at night. Um, we're gonna make it like a dance groove. Uh, nothing too, no tricks, no like trick aces up the sleeve. Like we're just gonna make it like a very nice sounding song. Uh, Got to make sure there's a strong hook, and then like everything else just kind of fit in. And so yeah, I made sure to keep with that concept of like every instrument representing a form of light. So like that first pad would be like a really warm beam, right? The arp and the background is more like a strobe light effect, right? The bass is kind of like a street light, or at least that's kind of how I envisioned it. And so in that sense, it was unique in the way I approached it, because I tried to approach it more like a conceptual artist rather than like a musician.
It sounds like you're describing it almost like you're creating a painting instead of
Yeah,
thinking about it like notes, you know?
yeah, it's funny that you say that because I've been painting just like for fun since like 2016. I like stretch my own canvas. Most recently, I've just been doing oil pastel on woodblock. Um, but in the summer of 20 or the spring of 2020, right before I like produced all these songs that came out as Miley, I was in London, and I was actually spending most of my time learning about oil painting and like Victorian art and just like English art in general in London. And so I really did approach my music like I was going to make an oil painting, because in so many ways it's so similar. You have all of these layers of color and texture that for the regular person who's just kind of like consuming it, whether they're walking by in a museum or they hear the song in like the background or like their friend is playing it, they're not looking at like each individual paint stroke, right? But each stroke is still just as important as the next. And so with that sort of in mind, I translated that into music is like I want to make sure that like everything is there to make that illusion to the eye or to the ear, but I don't want to make it so like, hey, check out this cool thing in this section, and like, oh, here's this little moment. Like I wanted it to really feel just like an organic 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes. And then if you re-listen to it, if you want to follow one instrument throughout the whole thing, you can do that. And it's like a unique listen. You can go back, rewind it, and just listen to like, I don't know, the hat pattern and kind of have like a groove in that sense. So yeah, I approach it very much so like an oil painting. That's funny that you picked that up.
Yeah, and that's funny you mention the hats in particular because I first, of course, when I hear a whole song, I'm usually not thinking about one particular instrument, but as I heard it multiple times, that particular hats, I was like, man, those are really going fast, but they're not exactly like they don't take over the space, and that makes me wonder. Going back to the painting analogy here, if you're making this song, did you start so you had the pads first and once you had that, was it like all of a sudden the whole picture was in your mind and you were just ready to lay it down, or was it kind of like one at a time, like other adding instruments or adding a hook, and it gradually grew into something, or did you kind of already envision that whole thing immediately once you heard the pads?
Once I got that first section down, I had an idea of where it was going to go. Um, and that's just kind of like the carrot that like led me on to make the next step in the song. But did I have an exact kind of like I didn't know that the song was going to sound like that when I first started. I had an idea, but it was almost more like each instrument led me to the next one. So it was almost inevitable that it would sound like that, I guess, just based on like my artistry and how I approach music, I guess. Um,
So you're
and
kind
yeah,
of
so I,
exploring it or like discovering it as it's happening.
yeah, yeah, it's almost like sculpture making, but the inverse, right? So like in sculpture, you have the marble and you chisel it down. And this, it was like I have an empty space and I'm trying to like make something out of it. But still, like that something was already there. It's just me trying to like bring it out, and how to do that in the most effective way. And yeah, so at first, the first demo is much busier. Like there's a lot more instruments, there's a lot more going on. And so in the mixing process, I had to like pare it down and kind of make it a little bit more simple. So it wouldn't be so like uh, so kind of like oppressive to the ear. Like it's a lot more spacious now. And I think that the mix and the mastering definitely like added to that. Just kind of making each instrument much more special in its own space. And that's using less to make more, you know?
Yeah, I've talked about that concept with a few people on this show, Sam Eagle being one of them, Elliot Moss the other, because specifically we talked about Radiohead and Kid and what is it, In Rainbows, because that album is like you can look at each individual instrument in one song and there's really not that much going on. Like everything is so perfectly in place. There's not too much and there's not too little. Do you have a certain philosophy when it comes to working on these songs? Like you said, you had to narrow down some instruments. Have you had times where you maybe wish you did less, or maybe you wish you actually did a little bit more?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think that my own opinion on my songs shifts uh, like month to month. Like
Yeah.
I'll have one month where like 21 is my favorite song, or like You Make Me Sick is my favorite song. And then one morning I'll listen to it and I'll just be like, oh, that doesn't sound right. Like I wish I had done something else. And so I'll put it down for a little bit. Um, so with that being said, I don't think that there's any individual song where I'm like, I wish that this was in the final mix. At least songs that are out right now, just because once a song is like on the streaming platforms, the DSPs, it's not mine anymore. Like I'll listen to it as if it was, a stranger's music. So I don't really feel like, I guess, music FOMO for any of my songs because like they're not mine anymore, you know, like they it is what it is. And if I were to change it, it's not the same song anymore. So like sometimes people, you know, people who like work with me on music will be like, oh yo, I really like this song. Maybe in the future we could do like a remaster and tweak this and tweak that. And every time I hear that, I'm just kind of like, it's a cool idea, but the song is done. Like if we want to do something else, it's just not the same song, and that's kind of like redundant. You know what I mean? Like let's just kind of take that ethos of whatever you're trying to change and just make a new project out of that. So I don't really ever go back to my songs and think like, oh, I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that. Because once the song is that I've made is released, like I've already gotten fine with how it is. Um, and I start to look at it from more of like a bird's eye view or like a third party's perspective.
Well, that's a pretty healthy way of looking at it, I think. There's been times where I do feel like that about a song that I've released, where it just, I mean, mostly in general, it always feels like I'm hands off now. Like, there's not really reason to revisit it. I've spent so much time on it, and now it's out. Like, I don't need to keep going back and revisiting it. I don't think that's very healthy to look at it in that way. But, at the same time, everyone has those moments where you look back at something that you've done previously and you think, like if I only knew what I knew now, then I could have made this sound a little bit better. And I think that's unfortunately a thought that everyone's going to have, but it shouldn't be something that deters anybody from starting because, it's like the first thing you ever put out is not going to be your favorite thing, usually, because you're going to learn so much more as you go on.
For sure, for sure. And I think I've had more of that feeling towards my older projects, like under That Boy Miles. A lot of those songs I'll listen to and I'm like, "Ugh, I wish I'd done like there's my favorite song that I made as That Boy Miles is a song called Panic. And it's really like the closest thing to Miley music that I was making under that other name. Um, but there's no bass in it. Like there's there is a bass sound, but it's not in the hook. It's only in like the pre-chorus, and it's just so like uh, a tease. It's such a tease. You know what I mean? Because why have a build up to nothing, right? You know what I mean? Like it's so anticlimactic. So I'll re-listen to it. I'm like, oh god, like how did I let this go through like the production and mixing process with no bass in the chorus? But I think that with these new songs, like I was so intentional from the beginning of like creating these that by the time they were coming out, I didn't even I was like tired not tired of them, but I was like, it I'm ready to have dropped it last month. You know what I mean? Like there's only so much nitpicking that I can do. Because I'm like for all the songs that are released, except for 21, I was just making them on my laptop, like using Apple headphones on my mom's couch. Like it was very much just like a way to express myself through the boredom of the pandemic of like the early days of the sort of uncertainty and overall yeah boredom of the whole thing. So fast forward 6 months later and I'm still hearing the same beats. I'm kind of like I'm past it. Like I'm working on the next songs to release. So I think that's why I didn't feel so much FOMO because I worked on these songs for so long, more longer than like I worked on any other project before. And I think it paid off too. I really think that that shows in the music, the sort of like intention of it.
Yeah, I'm glad you said what you said about just being on your mom's couch making this with Apple headphones, because a lot of people do think that it needs to be this huge studio you go into. You got to pay an engineer. You got to do all these things, but that's only necessary for like certain people. Like if you're at such a high level, and even that is like not necessary. But you listen to your songs, they sound well mixed. They sound like you've got an idea there, and it's very creative. And I think it's important for people to know that you don't need anything more really than your laptop, some headphones, and just the passion and the patience to create something out of nothing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like I used to be in that mindset of like, oh, I need to have like all this equipment and like the biggest speakers I can find and like make sure that they're like super flat because like, oh, I got to make sure that like I'm sending the right quality sound over and stuff like that. But in reality, now that was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I've been producing and releasing music since like 2016. So with this project, I was so comfortable with my own skills that it was like I know what's I know what I need to do on the DAW to make it so that like the instruments will translate to the final mastering process. So the guy who mastered all these songs is this dude named Joe Lambert. And this is the first time I've actually used like a professional mastering engineer. And it was honestly surreal how he took the songs to like this next level. Um, I've always kind of understood that mastering is important, but I didn't know what it could do to a track until I saw it happen in studio. So he's the nicest guy ever. He let me like come into the studio to watch him master. And he did Outer Peace, Toro y Moi's, I
Oh,
guess,
get
most
the
recent
fuck out
project.
of here. Really?
So, yo, yes. So
I
Toro y Moi is like
love
my
that
fucking idol,
album.
dude. And so he was using like Outer Peace, like I think he did like I don't remember exactly what songs he was doing, but he would use those as reference and then go back to my tracks and like tweak some things, do whatever he had to do. And like within maybe in 2 hours, you saw like a dramatic difference in the songs. And having that kind of like juxtaposition with like an established artist who's releasing like amazing music that I've been looking up to since like fucking 2013, um, juxtaposed with like the songs that I made on my couch, you know what I mean? Uh, was just like a surreal experience, but it proved to me how important that aspect of the music making process is. So now I don't use any. If I'm using an effect plugin or like have any effects on the channel strip, I am making sure that it's like super intentional and I want it to come out in the final mix. So I never use compression. Um, I rarely ever use EQs.
Wow.
If I'm using a reverb, it's gonna be like in the sound or like portal or thermal or something like that. Um, I never use just like space designers or things like that because that's something that's like should be done post production, in my opinion, at least. Um, because when I'm sending the stems to the mixing engineer, if I'm mixing in the room with them, I want to make sure that it's just like the essence of the instruments there, and that's it. Everything else that I want to add or do to it needs to be built from that um underpainting, I guess. Yeah, like an underpainting, you know what I mean? And then if we want to like emphasize the greens or emphasize the yellows, like we have the sort of flatness to do that. We don't have to like compensate for existing reverb or like adds like phantom frequencies to a sound because I cut out all the high end or cut out all the low end or cut out all the mids. So I don't do any of that anymore, because I understand how important the mixing and mastering process is and how you can kind of shoot yourself in the foot before you even get to that point.
Damn, you put that so well. I wish someone told me that years ago, dude. There's been so many times I've gone down rabbit holes where I think, oh, like I should put like three different reverbs on every instrument so that I can create this space. Or like, oh, that one frequency is really weird. Let me take it down. And then I end up cutting a lot of things or I end up boosting the wrong thing. And it's so easy to do too much. It's so easy. And it's really smart that you decided to just nix all of that yourself and bring it to someone who really like does this shit all day long and knows like professionally exactly what to do. Because like you said, if you cut all this stuff and then you bring it to them, it's a lot harder to just add to that. If you just bring them the baseline, kind of going back to the sculpting analogy, if you bring them already a block that's so chiseled away, what can they really do to it? But if you bring them a pretty generic kind of block, there's a lot more for them to do and do it in a professional way that someone like you or I might not have quite the expertise to know how to do correctly.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. I realized that I am a producer and an artist. I'm not a mixing or like, I'm not an engineer. I'm an artist and a producer, not the E. Like I'm not an engineer. So I wanted to make sure I'm allowing people. the main thing when I was collaborating with people on this go round was like give them the latitude and the space to be great. You know, like give them the opportunity to do that. Because if you're like basically giving someone a recipe, like you know what the final product is going to be. That's why you have that recipe. But if you kind of let them do what they're great at doing, you're going to have something that you would never expect. And that's exactly what happened with all these tracks. Like every time I got it back from like a new press or a new mix, I was just like blown away. And then you have even it's more exciting to do like small notes and stuff like that because you're already in this new sphere that you didn't expect to be in. Um, so yeah, man, I definitely agree with you on that. Like just knowing your strengths and then like knowing other people's strengths and letting everyone play to those.
100%. So I do have to ask, why ATL? I'm from Atlanta. It's my hometown. So
Oh, cool,
I
cool.
gotta ask why. Why? I love the shout out.
Yeah, so it's called ATL4 because my mom lives in Atlanta.
Oh,
So
nice.
I was on her couch. So I made like 13 tracks and that was ATL4. And I didn't really think there was a better title for it. That was just kind of like the working title I had on my computer. And I just stuck with it. Uh, I didn't feel like any of the lyrics were song titles, so I just stuck with the ATL4. Actually, Chrome Hearts, my first song that I released was ATL 13,
Oh,
but
funny.
that's not catchy. So I was just like, all right, let's do Chrome Hearts. Um, you Make Me Sick, I made in New Orleans because I'm from New Orleans. So I was like, my dad lives there, so I was just like at his place. So that doesn't have an ATL name to it, but ATL4 I just made in Atlanta, and it was the fourth track. So that's how I got the name.
Nice. Well, yeah, that definitely stuck out to me when I first heard it. I was like, all right, well, there's something here, of course. I love Atlanta, and that's cool that you spent some time here. I do want to shift gears a little bit to the 21 music video. I loved the song when I first heard it, but watching the music video made me love it even more. It's so well done, it's so professional. I implore anyone listening to go watch it because it's just very well done, especially for someone who's like an indie artist. Like I didn't think there was anything. I don't know, obviously, what the budget was, but it looked like high budget. It looked great, and I wanted to ask you, how did you come up with the concept for it? What was it like working on, a set where you have multiple people around you that are like really using their energy to get something done for you? Was it stressful at all? Was it fun?
Yeah, so that weekend that I shot 21, I also shot the Chrome Hearts music video, and this was all in Austin, Texas. Um, Got to give a big shout out to Alex Marcato and Ike Watson, and also just like 1222 in general. They are a production company out in Austin. Also, Ike's like one of my oldest friends. We've known each other since we were like in third grade. Um, Alex is like a super talented director. So Ike was more like on the producer on this. Alex was the director. The 21 video was self-funded. Chrome Hearts, I got some help from a friend. Um, but yeah, it was very expensive. Shouts out to the unemployment insurance that helped out a lot. That check
Hey,
definitely helped a lot. But yeah, the music video was crazy expensive. It was also insanely fun to film. Like it was ridiculous how like it was honestly like almost life changing that weekend. Everything felt so real and like palpable. So I've never been on like a real set like that. Like we shot 21 on over the course of 2 days, 16-hour days both ways. So like we'd wake up at 10. I think we shot it on this like 100-acre ranch outside of Austin in a city called New Braunfels, Texas. The director just kind of had like a guy that had some land out there and he let us film. There were also like a bunch of ranch hands on the property. Like shouts out to Spencer and Trent and all y'all guys. I know I'm forgetting some names, but I just don't remember everyone off the top of my head, unfortunately. Um, they helped out so much. But let's start from the beginning, right? How did this idea come to fruition? So I told Ike and that I wanted to shoot a music video and I had like a pretty decent budget. He was like, "Awesome, Alex is super talented. Let's make it work." So they kind of drew up some decks of like a couple ideas of what to do with 21. I think at first we were going to shoot the video for Chrome Hearts with like the bigger budget, but instead we went with 21 because I felt like it was more of a cinematic song. So we went with 21, and I get to Austin on like a Monday in April, and not April, August. I mean, August of 2020, and we're sitting in this park in Austin, and just kind of going through a bunch of decks, and this idea of like the ranch and using all these like metaphors for maturity and like growing out of naivete and what that kind of feels like were really present in this idea of like the last pitch deck that we chose. um and it just kind of like the way that he used visual elements to portray the energy of the song was like mind blowing, because I'd met Alex a couple of times before, but not anything like too intimate. Like we were cool but not like that close, and for him to like be able to distill down these ideas just from like a 3-minute piece was phenomenal. And so we get the ideas done, and basically the idea is like, all right, so you're turning 21, and you're on this ranch basically, and I'll let you guys watch the video to kind of get your own ideas on it. I'm not going to like explain everything because it's what you get from it. So back to like the technical aspects of shooting the video. It was a Friday and a Saturday. We get to the ranch like 10 a.m. and I was nervous at first. We had like 10 people on set. I have never really been like, I did acting as a kid and stuff, but like I'm not an actor, although I would if you were trying to get me some jobs, whoever's listening. But so yeah, I was kind of like, yo, I hope this works out because I'm investing a lot of money and like these people are investing a lot of time and energy into this. So like it's easy because all I was doing, it was amazing. Like I would hang out on the hammock on the ranch or like drive the ATVs. My arm was broken at the time too. So that kind of made things difficult. In some of the shots you see, I'm only riding the bike with one hand. It's because I can't put pressure in my other hand because it's broken.
Oh,
Um,
wow, that's funny. You were holding the surfboard though, right?
yeah, so that's not a surfboard. That is a balloon. That's an air. That's like a
Oh,
floaty.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, it is a
Yeah.
balloon.
So
That's
so it
funny.
has like no weight to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that made things much harder. So I'm just kind of like, I would sit in the hammock, play my guitar, like ride the ATVs, or just kind of like walk around the ranch, and then someone would grab me and be like, "All right, yo, we gotta like the shot's ready. Like let's go to the location." I'd go over to like whatever location we're filming at on the ranch, because again, it's like 100 acres. Like it's takes like 5 minutes to get from one location to the next. Um, and yeah, they would just give me my blocking. I'd kind of ask like what the scene like was going to, where we're coming from, like what my intention was, and we'd shoot like 3 or 4 times, and they'd pick their best takes. And honestly, it worked so seamlessly. Like it felt so right, and it felt so real, which I wasn't prepared for. Um, the fire scene was the most physically taxing thing I have done in my life. So like, first off, shouts out to Trent, one of the ranch hands. He basically like cut down a tree and made this like 15-foot, like 10 by 15-foot bonfire basically, and lit it on fire. Just a legend, right? I have some videos of him like pulling the tractor around, like put all the kindling in. And the way that we had, I was literally suspended from a crane in front of it, like that shot of me in front of the fire. There's no special effects. The only special effects that are used are to remove the wires that I'm holding on to make sure my arms are straight, and the what's it called? The thing that holds you up to the crane, whatever it's called.
Like
So
harness.
harness, that's what it is, a harness. So I was on this harness. Oh, I'm also covered in coconut oil to like shine in the fire. So I'm literally
Nice.
being baked. I'm being baked by this fire while I'm like a good 10, 15 feet in the air, trying to like extend a broken arm and like hold on to myself like in front of this fire. And it took so long, man. Like it was so uncomfortable, but the way that it came out was just like, it was all worth it, man. Like it dude, we had this like 60-foot crane on the shoot, and I'm just dangling from it. And it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. But that was like the most exciting part of the shoot. The most painful part was the last shot of me biking on the ridge. That ridge is all gravel. The only bike we had was a road bike, and I can only use one arm because I'm carrying something in the other arm. So I'm just like trying to make sure I go in a straight line with this like small bike and only like one arm to use. I cut the shit out of my ankles, like because of course the pedals are metal too, so they're just like bludgeoning my ankles. That was the most painful scene, but the most arduous one has to be that fire. And yeah, man, we ended up going from like 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. each day, and then like partying afterwards, and then going to sleep, waking up, and doing the same thing. And we wrapped at like 4 a.m. the last day, and went back to Austin. I think I went to sleep at like 6 that day, and it took another 3 months for the editing to happen. Next thing you know, you got an amazing video.
That's amazing. It sounds like such an incredible experience. And like,
It was surreal, man.
to me, that's like the dream, to make something so beautiful that you guys did in such a short, condensed period of time. It's like, it's wild because every second sometimes feels like it's droning on. And then by the end of it, you're like, I can't believe we already finished this whole thing. And then, of course, the other part of it that sucks is waiting patiently 3 months to get this edit back and not knowing how it's going to look and being anxious about it. It's like, it's just such a crazy, weird feeling. Were there any lessons you learned on this set, and any advice you'd give to artists who want to put out a music video but have not done that yet?
Yeah, I'd say like invest in yourself, and make sure you're letting other people do what they're best at so that you can do what you're best at. Like I knew that I had no clue how to blog a scene, what like lighting meant, any of that stuff. So I didn't even try to like engage in that. I was just there to like be the artist and like just kind of perform. Like that was my role, and I made sure that I did that as best as possible. Because at this, I only had to work for like 20, 30 minutes at a time. Everyone else on set is constantly doing something. Like the cameraman. Sorry, I just want to do some quick shout outs to like give everyone their
Do it.
flowers
Yeah,
on
do
it.
it.
Um, so let's see. I just gotta pull up the post. All right, yeah. So Alex Mercado, of course. Ike, Dalian Davis, shouts out to you. Brew, shout out. Odd Day, Ojos Anonymous, Carl Fry, Jaya Twill, and Katie Olson. Shouts out to and everyone else on the farm. I'm still forgetting some people, but yeah, they were working constantly. Trenton, Spencer, they were always doing something, and then they'd grab me and say like, shoot the scene, right? So that puts an immense amount of pressure on me. Like I don't want to like waste their time, right? So yeah, make sure you're always ready to go and make sure that you're letting people do what they're best at. That's like the only advice I can give to people. Because at the end of the day, I'm learning too, right? Like as long as you're like respectful of the people's time and energy, and giving them the latitude to do what they need to do, everything will work out fine.
That's all great advice. I do think it's very important to conserve your energy because, like you said, you were there to perform. You were there to be the quote unquote actor in this situation. And if you start trying to, now some people you can direct and act and do all that stuff. Some people like they really excel at it. But if you're not 100% sure about certain things, it is best to let people who really excel in a certain area, let them do their thing because they're gonna do their best because that's what they love. And if you start messing with that, just because I don't know, maybe you want to like inflate your own ego to prove that you can do something, or you're just really nervous that it's not going to turn out the way you want, you have to be able to let some of that go so that you can conserve your own energy to do really what you need to do, because otherwise you're just wasting it on things that are going to hold everyone up.
Yeah, no, exactly. Quick timeout. My phone just died. But I have a charger. Just I need to
Okay,
run and
yeah,
get
no
that real quick.
worries.
1, 2, 3. All right, cool. We're solid. Sorry about that.
No worries, man. I'm impressed you got the backup phone ready to go in case.
Yeah, it's not mine, but it's here, so we're gonna use it.
Yeah, you got to be resourceful, you know. It's like when you're on set and they have 3 or 4 different batteries for the camera cuz that shit runs out quick.
Yo, that was ridiculous, man. Like, I think the 21, like all the raw footage was something like 2 terabytes or something like that, like a couple terabytes.
Wow.
I ne like it was ridiculous. I didn't expect it to be that long, or that big of a file. But yeah, man, ridiculous, ridiculous. Shouts out to everyone who does film, man. Like that's one of the coolest art forms in my opinion. Um, to make something like visual out of nothing, film is the best.
Totally agreed. I think music videos too are like the future. I think they're only going to be more and more popular of a medium. I mean, they really already are, but I just there's something about music videos that I think combine the best of both worlds, you know. Um, but I do want to ask you about just the fact that I guess you did say you have a previous project, That Boy Miles, but I actually didn't know that until now. So I assumed that all your music you'd released was like at the beginning of 2021. And but regardless, you've released 4 singles in the 5 months of 2021. That's a lot of work. What made you like start with a new project and like how did you get going with all these singles so quickly?
Yeah, so I graduated college in 2020, like right at the start of the pandemic, and didn't have a job, didn't know what I was gonna do with my life. But I was still making music. So I just kind of like told myself I'm gonna give myself like the next 365 days to just be a musician and just like focus on making really good music. Um, and once it's ready to go, like have a lot of stuff in the tuck to release. And so I spent all of 2020 just kind of getting the songs and the videos and the visuals ready. Um, so that in 2021 I could be like a new artist and like stand on my own 10 toes. So yeah, that's how like all this stuff got together. It took like 8 or 9 months. Yeah, 9 months actually, to like make this whole project into fruition. And now it's just kind of like playing my cards, you know? Uh, and there's even more music like ready to go. I'm just trying to figure out like the best way to do it. Um, and I'm recording more music as we speak. So um, yeah, it's all really exciting. This was all it's honestly all been going according to plan, which is the weirdest part. Like I'm not used to things working to plan, I guess. But yeah, I told myself that these songs are gonna make my career, and hopefully it is. You know, we're still at the very early parts, but it's going really, really well. Um, and yeah, it's if I've never had such a definitive plan of what I want to do with the music, and I've also never seen this kind of like uh, coming back to me, like this energy coming back. So I think the intention and the planning was like what kind of made the difference.
So where do you see your career going in the next 365 days or even, you know, a couple years down the line?
World domination.
Hey,
No, just kidding. In the next couple of years, I'm probably just gonna be like a cool underground artist, you know, building up my fan base, like building up a core audience. Um, I'd say it's like 3 years removed from world domination. Probably like a clean 3 years from world domination. Um, yeah, but we're getting there. We're getting there. I understood in like March or April that I was like just at the beginning because I've been releasing music for a while. I've been making music since I was like 13. My first foray into music was like an Arctic Monkeys and Panic at the Disco cover band. We didn't even have a drummer; it was just me and a bassist. I played guitar and like we had a bassist. Um, so I kind of thought that I was much farther along than I actually was up until this year. Because then I started to actually like have more than just the people who know me listen to my music. And it's a surreal time, but everything's going according to plan. So we'll see what the future holds. I try not to put too much into things I can't control. That's like one of my ways that like I soothe my anxiety is just to like delineate things into two groups, things I can control and things I can't. And once something's in the can't control category, I like don't touch it. You know, of course it's going to affect my life, but I try not to let it consume me because you can't control it. That's like trying to change the weather. Like it's futile. Um yeah, so then you can put more effort into the things you can control. That's like the benefit of that kind of process.
Wow, that is crazy you just said that because I literally just had a conversation with one of my best friends, Valeria, about that exact same thing about how, and I mean, with everything in life, not just with music, like there's only so much you can control. And I was having just a particularly just hard time trying to just worrying about what other people are thinking and how I could control an outcome that is not up to me. And that's such a futile effort. And it really just applies in all facets of life. And that's just insane that you brought it up exactly the way she talked about it too. It's kind of freaky. But yeah, it's just it only lets you know like that is the only way you can look at things because you can just spend so much energy trying to make the universe work for you, but you're not on your own timeline. You're on the universe's timeline, and the things that are meant for you will come for you because they're absolutely meant for you. And the things that aren't meant for you, you can do everything you can to grab it, but you won't get it. And maybe there's probably a really good reason you won't, and you just can't understand it right now.
And I think a lot of the times too, we use this kind of thinking to soothe us from the bad things that happen that we can't control. But also it helped me temper my own mentality for the good things that happened over the last few months. Like all the attention that the songs have been getting. Of course it is due to like the work that me and like the team put into it. Uh but also at the same time, like that success is a collection of other people enjoying the songs. Like that's what it is. It's not like adulation towards me. You know what I mean? Like I can't control people liking the song just as much as I can control people disliking the song. So I'm not a very religious person, but the only vocabulary I know to use is like it's a blessing. You know what I mean? Like I'm really not a religious person at all. Like, but that's kind of all I can think of to explain it. Like it's good and it's nice, but it's also not my choice or like my like yeah I did what it needed to be done to get that the numbers or whatever the listens and stuff like that and people liking the songs, but that's up to them to do. And just as much as like they can like the song they can also dislike it, and having that sort of like removal from other people's opinions is important in the bad aspects and the good things, because it's easy to gas your head up. It's easy to get gassed up into thinking that like everything you do is going to be right. When it's right, enjoy it. But understand it's just as fleeting as when things are wrong.
And the only thing you can control in this situation really is your own enjoyment of the process of creating this. Because if you didn't enjoy it, then you wouldn't be doing it in the first place. So everything else is
Exactly.
just rewards on top of it. And
Yeah, we call it lanyap back home. It's just lanyap on top.
yeah, exactly. And you can't expect more than that. And of course it's so hard to remember all the time
Yeah, man.
because you want people to like it and you want to get that good reception back. But at the end of the day, knowing in your heart that you did it for you and that it feels right and that just the pure love of creating something that didn't exist before that moves you is is really all you can hope for.
Yeah, no, exactly, man. Exactly. All the stuff that happens after the song is out is, you know, that's not yours, that's just what it is. It is what it is, and you have to like live through it. I don't know, man. It's all so new to me. Like these songs came out in February. Like that's when I started releasing these songs. So it's only been like 4 months. I guess. 4 months, that's the math, yeah. So, who knows what's next, man? Who knows?
It's all learning experience for everyone here.
Exactly, a student of life. That's what I try to be, man.
Very well put. Well, that's going to take us over to the last five here, where I'm just going to ask you five quick questions and we'll be done.
Fire.
All right, number one, Logic or Ableton?
Logic all day. Ableton is the ugliest program of all time. Quote me on it.
Oh, shit. He said it. You were not holding back.
Nah, bro, I have so much smoke for Ableton because everyone uses it too. I'm one of the few people I know that still uses Logic, and yes, it pisses me off a lot. I hate Apple, unless you guys are trying to give me money. Um, like it's just so much better from a user standpoint, like a usability standpoint, Logic than Ableton. Like Ableton is prohibitively ugly. That's my quote.
Prohibitively ugly. He said it here. That I use Logic too, so I'm with you there. I'm on Team Logic. It's funny because it really is about 50-50 the people I talk to. I'd say half do Logic, half do Ableton, and it's just funny to get the scoop from everyone about why they chose what they chose. Some people, you happen into one, and that just happens to be the one forever. But yeah, have you ever tried Ableton? Like, ever even attempted it?
Oh, I have Ableton. I have it. I have it on the same computer I have Logic in, and I tried to switch, and I was like, "Why am I doing this? Why am I switching? What benefit is it giving me?" Um, so yeah, now it's Logic all day. I started with FL though. That was my first one,
Oh
but it was still
shit.
Fruity Loops at the time.
Right, right. That's funny. Yeah, I've never even attempted that. That looks really complicated. So does Pro Tools. I don't fuck with that.
Oh yeah, no, no. Pro Tools is for the mastering guys. That's a great question though. Ableton or Logic?
Thank you. Yeah, so we got a Team Logic over here. I love to hear it. Question number two is, what to you is a perfect album front to back?
Ooh, ooh, yes, 6 Feet Beneath the Moon, King Cruel, baby. I
Very
love that
nice.
album. I love that album so much, bro. Like, there's a few more I can name, but like that's the first one that comes to mind. That is the first one that comes to mind.
Great choice. I love that album. I have it on vinyl, and every now and then I spin it. It's a great nighttime album.
Yeah, man. Oh man, that ooh, some mentality, bro. Come on. That's one of like the that's one of the oh, and Borderline. Oh man, I could go on for days. Each one of those songs is
Borderline.
just like even Easy Easy. It's like it's the hit song from it, but still, man, like that is a there's no album like that. Even like King Cruel's other albums don't compare. They're still really great, but something about 6 Feet Beneath the Moon is just like such a unique piece of music, and it's perfect front to back.
Totally agreed. Borderline for me was the one that really got me into it because I heard Easy Easy so many times before I really gave the whole thing a listen, and I didn't really get it. I thought the whole thing was going to be sounding like that. And then finally I heard Borderline and I was like, "Wait, this is the same guy? This is crazy, this instrumentation." Now I have to go back and listen to it. I just remember the guitars that come in the chorus are so different, and like I've never heard anything like that. So if you haven't listened to that album and you're listening to this right now, go check it out.
Listen to it yesterday, man. This thing is so good.
Well, that's a great answer. Question number three is, who's your dream artist or producer to work with?
No ID, no ID, and third time no ID. Um, that dude is like I grew up playing jazz music. Like that's how I got into music was through jazz. Um, and his approach to Jay-Z's 444 album was like a jazz musician. Each 4 bars is unique, each 4 bars is different, but it's still part of the same like motif. Um, and yeah, he's a genius. No ID. Enough said.
I don't really know him. I've never listened to his stuff. Is he a producer?
He's a producer. He's the guy who like got Kanye into Rockefeller and all that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like every Rockefeller project from like 98 to like 20 to now basically has some no ID influence on it.
Interesting. All right, I'm gonna have to go check him out. Um, I try to think of a few artists that my guests should work with. The first one I had was Roy Blair.
Roy Blair, I've seen the name so many times, but oh no, I have listened to some of his music. I have listened to some of his music. Um, he's cool. Yeah, it's cool. It's good.
Yeah, he's got an album that he put out. I can't remember what the album was called because I never listened to that one, but that came out like a few years ago. But the EP he put out like 2 years ago, that's the one. It's so good. It's only 3 songs, but each song is fucking great. And Frank Ocean loves it, so you know that it's got that stamp of approval. So if you haven't checked it out, I think it's called, one of the songs is called Fantasia. I don't think that's the name of the EP, but it's like him with green hair and a green dress. You'll know it immediately if you see it. So sick. It's like very, very dance centered. It really reminds me of the stuff you put out for sure. And then the
I have
other,
to check that out. Yeah.
yeah, the other person I was gonna say is an artist I had on this show actually a few episodes ago named Josh Mason. So I'll send you some of his stuff. Like I'd love to see a collab between you two. It's
Yeah, send me his stuff.
yeah, he kind of has a similar style as you, but it's almost like a little bit grungier and a little bit more club
Ooh.
centered. Yeah, and he lives in Ohio,
Okay,
so
I like
oh,
that.
I'd love to see that collab. So I'll send you a couple of his songs.
Yeah, sounds good, man.
Question number 4 is what's on your musical rotation right now?
Right now, I'm listening to Ski from the YSL tape. That song Ski is so good. Um, a lot of Joni Mitchell, a lot of like Jim Croce, like I call it like trucker country from like the
Okay.
70s. Um, and also Michael McDonald. I love his voice. I love his songwriting.
Damn, what an eclectic list.
Bro, I'm telling you, I don't listen to the music I make. It's kind of like it's kind of funny. Like I listen to like oh, Joe Pass is like a guitarist, like a jazz guitarist who I'm getting back into right now. Um, I really listen to like, you know, regular rap stuff and then like out there shit. So yeah, that's kind of I'm also back into bossa nova. Like there's this girl Sonia Rosa. She's like from the 70s or something like that. She's really good. Great singer. Oh, Melody Bardot too, bro. She's like a more recent singer. She's like 30 or something like that, maybe. But she dropped a project in 2018. I think it's called Un Beijo or something like that. But it's really good. It's really, really good. That's probably been like my favorite new project that I've heard, even though it's not new.
Melody Bardot.
Yeah, Bardot.
Okay, cool. Nice. You give me a
Yeah,
lot of good artists to go check out.
yeah, man.
All right. Well, the last question here before we're done harkens back to somebody you mentioned earlier. And usually I have a question already written down, but in case someone says something that like piques my interest, I'll change up the last question. So the last question for you is what are the top 3 albums by Toro y Moi?
In order? Ah, damn, bro. All
If
right,
you
so
can do it in order, that's kind of hard, but if you can just name the
no,
top
I'm gonna
three.
do it in order, bro.
All right, all
Yeah,
right.
no, I got you. Number one, causes of this. Number one is causes of this. I don't want to hear any arguments. If you want to argue, my at on Twitter is the Miley Jenner. Like, come for me. I
Hit
swear to
him up.
God, we can have it. We can
Hit a
have
boy
this
up.
discussion. So causes of this, number one. Number two is Boo Boo. Also, I if you want to at me, it's at the Miley Jenner. Like we can talk about it. Number two is Boo Boo. Number three, oh, Outer Peace. I'm gonna say Outer Peace
Mm,
because he's okay. That was like the coolest album he's ever done. Like the most cool boy album. You know what I mean? Like he
yeah,
has
that's true.
bars. He's like really rapping. You know what I mean? Like, but then it's still like definitely Toro y Moi. Um, also that song, I forget the name now, but it has like that Six Flag song ass synth. Like, so good, man. I think it's called Who I Am. Yeah, Who I Am.
Yeah,
That's the one with the Six Flag synth. I
I
love
love
it,
that
man.
the line he says in there is like something. Who cares about the party? I came to see the band play.
Yes, sir. Come on, bro. Like the whole song is a hook. He killed it. He killed it, man. Outer Peace, number three.
I
So
can't
yeah, there you
believe.
go.
Honestly, I'm gonna at you right now because I can't believe you didn't say anything in return, man. I can't believe it.
Yeah, bro. That was when I took a pause to be like, oh, number three. I was between anything in return and outer peace. Um, anything in return is cool. I just think outer peace was like a little bit more like well produced.
Yeah, that's fair. I just thought anything in return. I love the psychedelic influence on the whole thing. Like each song is such a weird instrumentation. I mean, the first time I ever heard, oh God, why am I forgetting the name? It's the very first song, Heart something, whatever, I'll look it up later. It's the very first song, and the first time I heard that, I just was blown away. And I actually didn't really like the next two songs for a long time, and then eventually I got into it. But yeah, to me, Anything in Return, Outer Peace is top three for sure. I haven't listened to Causers of This enough. I've heard it a few times. I've listened to the whole thing a few times, just because I knew it was his first album. I don't know about Boo Boo. I don't get it. Like, what, there's Girl Like You, that's a good song, but like to me the rest are like just trying to be Girl Like You.
Okay, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, but I appreciate that they're all kind of versions of Girl Like You. Like Mona Lisa is one of my favorite Toro y Moi songs. Um, but there are some sleepers on it. I'm not gonna lie. There's some skips. But I'm not opposed to some skips, man.
No, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm looking up on his discography right now. The ones that kind of get slept on, honestly, is What For? Because he like goes down that psychedelic rock
Oh, is that
vibe.
like a Lessons project?
No,
Like
it's not. But that's funny you bring up Lessons because I didn't even know about that until last year. But it's the one where he's just sitting in front of this wall with a blue. It's like a blue wall with a circle around his head.
Oh, yo, I've never listened to that project. I still
Yeah,
have not listened to it.
I've got the CD
That's
in my
crazy.
car, so it became kind of a soundtrack for me for a while. That album is great, and it's so different from everything else because it's like no no electronic drums. It's all like psychedelic rock, so it's very different from everything else. But he does a great job. It's all very kind of his happy-go-lucky attitude towards it, and actually, Soul Trash doesn't get enough hype either, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of good tracks from Soul Trash. It's just hard for me to remember their names.
Oh yeah, I have no idea what any of the names are. I just have to start at the beginning and like listen to as much as I can.
Definitely one of those. Oh, yo, actually, very slept on Tori Moi project. If you know this, you know this. Samantha.
Samantha, I don't think I know
It's
it.
this like it's from like 2014. It's like basically
Huh.
it's it's like a bunch of demos. But like Cool AD from Das Racist is on it. It's really cool. You should check it out.
It doesn't
I
look
don't
like
know
it's
where to
on
find it.
Spotify. How did you listen to it?
I just like, dude. I think I torrented it in like
Oh
2014.
shit.
I don't, but I don't know if that's the case because I also had like a booklet that came with it, like a digital booklet. So it might have been a free download. I don't really remember. But it's on SoundCloud now. I think it's. I'm pretty sure it was a free download because it's not on DSPs. Um, I don't rip. I don't torrent anymore. We're all legal boys now. Um,
Yeah. Well, Samantha, okay, I'm gonna have to check that out because, man, like I think you lit a fire under me for my next Toro y Moi phase because it goes in peaks and troughs, and I feel another one coming up.
yeah, man, get back into it, man. Stoned at the MoMA is my favorite song off that project.
Okay, Stoned at the MoMA. That's a great name.
Right? Like, come on, man. But yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
Awesome. Well, Miley, I think that's going to conclude our interview here on That Note. Thank you so much for joining me for an episode. It's been a pleasure talking to you about your creative process and fangirling over Toro y Moi. Everyone needs to go listen to ATL 421, Chrome Hearts, I'm Sick of You. No, it's what's it called? Not
You make me sick.
You Make Me Sick. I was close. Fuck. And
Yeah,
they're
it's called
all
good.
bangers. Everyone needs to keep an eye on you because I feel like you're like a shooting star, bro, for real. I'll send you those couple of songs after this. And yeah, man, everyone check you out. Thank you for joining me. Seriously, this has been awesome.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me, Parker. This was a great combo and great things in the future, man, for both of us. I can already smell it.
Absolutely, dude. I'll talk to you later. Thanks again for coming on.
Later.
See you, bro. Thank you again for joining me for another episode of On That Note with Parker Whirling. If you haven't yet, please make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, and you can even leave a comment down below to let me know who you're listening to. On that note, I'll see you guys next time.
You make me sick. If you gon' cut me off, then please at least How many times I told you all of me?